Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franson here, co-host for this show where we feature top restaurateurs, investors, and business leaders. This is part of our SpotOn series. SpotOn has the best-in-class payment platform for retail, and they have a flagship solution called SpotOn Restaurant where they combine marketing, software, and payments all in one. They've served everyone from larger chains like Dairy Queen and Subway to small mom and pop restaurants. To learn more, go to SpotOn.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses to get ROI, clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships through Done For You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build great relationships with clients, referral partners, and thought leaders in your space, there's no better way to do it than through podcasts and content marketing. To learn more, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. Anthony Valletta is president at Bartaco, which currently has 26 locations across 12 states. Anthony is an analytical and hands-on executive leader with a wealth of knowledge in all aspects of the business, from QSR to fine dining, startups to corporate operations. His people development and leadership skills have set him up to build high-performing industry-leading teams. Hey, Anthony, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
My pleasure. Good to be here. Thanks, Chad. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, great to have you. Hey, tell me a little bit more about Bartaco. And I've been there before, but maybe you can tell us what a customer might expect when going there.
Yeah, we're 11 years in now. Just had multiple locations, but the big thing for Bartaco, it's about being an escape. So it feels like you either walked into your mountain lodge or your beach hut. And the idea is to kind of go there and just transport yourself, get away, be able to relax with some great fresh food. The home menu's gluten-free, fresh squeezed cocktails. Really just meant to be those beautiful smells and aromas and feel and vibe of being on a beach with your feet in the sand, having delicious margaritas and great tacos. So it's kind of the feeling that we're going for when you walk into a Bartaco.
Do you think people should think of it like as a place they would go to on a Friday night or more than that?
It's interesting. We have guests come multiple times a week because you can experience Bartaco in so many different ways. You can eat differently when you go in. You can go in for a business meeting. You can get a great happy hour. You do great late night. We do some music in some locations late night. Great for a quick lunch, good for a dinner setting. We've kind of become a little bit of that like jack of all trades, master of none expression, but in a restaurant perspective. So it's been great. We're really fortunate that we've kind of been able to experience Bartaco and all meal parts.
I know you haven't been there since it started, but have you learned much about the history of Bartaco? Do you know how it came about?
I've learned a ton. Their CEO is one of the co-founders, and one of the other co-founders is the chairman of the board. And the third co-founder is still doing design for us. So I've heard plenty of stories over many cold cocktails from the three of them to feel like I was here for the whole time.
You've been there since September of 2021, but you have a lot of experience. You have decades of experience in the restaurant industry. You've been with Del Frisco's. You've been director of operations there, managing partner with Darden Restaurants, among others. What drew you to Bartaco?
I've always watched the Barteca brand. It used to be part of Bartaco in Barcelona. We're one company. And Andy and Sasha, the original founders, and then Scott, our CEO now, was the COO. They were always, in my opinion, industry leaders. They were doing things differently. They were on the cutting edge of innovation, both from food experience as well as technology. And they operated really, really strong. So to me, I was always admired as to what they were doing and kind of watched them from afar for many years. So when I had the opportunity to come on board, I jumped all over it. I was really, really impressed.
You've not only worked in the restaurant industry, but others as well. What is it about the restaurant industry that you particularly enjoy, and maybe that's different from other industries that you've worked in?
Yeah, I've always done restaurants my whole life. And to me, no 2 days are the same. That's the part that I love. And honestly, I don't think there's any other job that deals directly one-on-one with as many people as we get to engage. And I love that part of the business, whether that's a guest, an employee, a vendor. To me, it's so much about relationships. It's so much about really thinking about the future and predicting the unpredictable, which to me is a fun challenge, but literally you can't recreate a day ever. People are like, what's your job look like? I'm like, it depends on the day. It's never the same, which to me, I think is a lot of fun. I don't think there's other industry out there that's like that.
So what does your job look like? People might think, you have more than 24 locations across different states that you might not see anybody. What does your job look like as president of Bartaco?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I kind of joke like my main job is to deploy resources, support my team, and keep the trains running on time. So I'm out on the field traveling almost every week, visiting our stores across the country, visiting obviously new stores that are opening up or prospective real estate with Scott, our CEO. Obviously checking on all the operations, the health of the business, from employee satisfaction, which we look at daily, guest satisfaction, what we look at, read every single review every single morning from every guest. That's kind of what kickstarts every day. It's about the only normal thing of my schedule, but I'm here to support the teams on the ground in whatever way I can, whether that's going and helping out, giving some advice, providing support and resources from our corporate team. So that's kind of a super high level, best way I can describe the chaos that is the job.
Sure. What was your first experience in your life working in the restaurant industry?
Yeah, I used to flip pizzas at a sports bar when I was probably too young to technically be working, but so it goes. You maneuver the way in. I think I was making like, I don't know, it was like $4 an hour, and I thought it was, I was rich, right? But I started really young. Wanted to save money to buy a car, like most people do when they first get a job. I was 13 years old and started washing dishes, and then got moved over and started flipping pizzas. And from there, it just kind of, I got the bug. It was just fun and exciting, and never really looked back.
What was your second job?
Second job, I went to go work for a guy named Joey Crignali. He was the original founder of Bertucci's, which is a Northeast Italian chain. He opened a Cuban restaurant about 2 miles from my house. This place was on like a 2-hour wait every night. It was a behemoth back when you had smoking sections and non-smoking sections, and we did live music and fresh fish every single day. And I got to go back in the kitchen, and I was a prep cook. I got to basically work behind the scenes and learn all about fish and where it came from around the world, and how to really work in a prep kitchen, which is very different than tossing dough and open up a bag of shredded cheese. So that's where I got the full service bug, and went from spent a lot of time with them all through my high school.
Was there ever a time where you thought like restaurants are my thing, or did you just kind of like continuously move throughout the path and they just were always your thing and you never thought about it?
Crazy enough, I said it when I was young. My parents always joke. When I was 6 years old, I was like a really picky eater. Now there's no food I won't eat. But when I was 6, I said I want to open a restaurant someday. My parents were like, this kid's crazy. He barely eats any food. But my grandfather, who's passed, my experience with him, he was always a personal mentor of mine. We used to dine out all the time at like these local Italian joints in upstate New York where I grew up. And to me, there was something about the connection. He walked in at a small business up in town, so he knew these people. So I was always infatuated with walking into dinner with him, and everybody was shaking hands and having fun. And it just created so many nostalgic memories for me that when I was super young, I think it was always interesting. And then as I started working in them, I think the two, paths kind of collided, and I never looked back.
I'm guessing the restaurant industry is not one where you can just kind of like you start coasting, like thinking like, okay,
No.
now we're all set here. We just relax.
No, God, no. There's no such thing as relaxation for the restaurant business. I mean, when everybody else is off on vacations and long weekends, we're working harder. In the days when it seems to be slow, you work twice as hard to try to drive your business and bring people in. So there's rarely an off day, and even an off day is never really off because guests are always coming into your building. So it's definitely not an R&R type thing, but if you love it, there's no day of work. It's all fun.
How did you learn some of the leadership skills that you have while working in the restaurant industry?
Yeah, I did. I played sports growing up, all the way through college. That was a huge kind of
Sure.
piece where you start to learn, the team component of that, and transfer those into your professional life. I took leadership classes when I was in college at Boston University because it was always interesting to me of how do you build high performing teams. But I've taken plenty of seminars and classes in executive coaching, but there's nothing like on the job training. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, and I've learned a lot from them, and try to not repeat, the past history. But it's a constant evolution. I'm actually, very infatuated with the theory of leadership and evolution and how you manage different generations. So it's always been an interest of mine throughout my whole career.
Can the tone you set, even as president in one location, carry through to all locations?
Yeah, I mean, we use the expression "speed of the captain, speed of the ship," right? So I was actually chatting with somebody yesterday, and he's an amazing analogy. They said, the leader, the president or CEO brings the weather. Everyone else has to live with it, right? So if I'm raining down the team, it rains on everybody, whether you talk to them or not. So it's really important that you set that standard and that waterfall effect transfers down to your entire team.
So you've been there for about probably more than a year and a half now. Was there like a need, or was there just an opening and they needed to fill it? What caused them to bring you on board?
Yeah, little long story, but consolidated down. The original founders sold to Del Frisco's. Funny enough, the company I used to work for a couple of years ago. Del Frisco's then sold to L Catterton, the PE firm that owns us now. And initially, El Catterton had a concept called Uncle Julio's that they tried to merge the two together. Quickly realized the cultures just weren't the same. And they actually brought Scott, one of the co-founders, back and said, "Hey, we want you to run the concept," but he had no corporate team. So he started to build a corporate office, and then COVID hit. So that all got fizzled down. So once we came out of COVID, Scott realized, like, I need someone to run the day-to-day operations here so that he can work on the future of the brand, right? The brand itself, the real estate perspective, and want to bring somebody in that could kind of take the brand into the future and beyond. So it was a newly created role in this new building of our corporate team. And it took us a few months really of going back and forth and meeting, interviewing to get to where I'm at today, but haven't been happier ever. So it's really nice.
What has been kind of your primary focus since coming on board?
Yeah, we launched a model called on-demand hospitality. So I'm not sure the last time you've been to Boulder, but when you sit down, QR codes became rampant again in COVID. We all thought they were dead, and we leaned in with a company called One Dine. So QR code is not just your menu, but it's your ordering platform. So you're using your iPhone to order throughout the experience. So you think about all those moments during dining from a diner's perspective that are challenging. I want a second drink. I can't find my server. I want to pay my check. My kids are screaming. We wanted to put that power back into the guests' hands and be able to allow them to have more control of their experience. Simultaneously, we didn't want to lose the personal touch. So we actually doubled down on our management teams and created a new position called a service leader. So it's a hybrid of a server and a manager. And their only job is to take what we call zones, so about a dozen and a half tables, and just throw the party. So we actually elevated our hospitality, elevated our guest experience, improved our guest sentiment by a landslide. We're running like a 4.7 out of 5 right now as a company. The initial year really was figure out how to make this work. It was still very new. We were still coming out of COVID. So the first year was really figuring out the structure, the disciplines, what the model looks like, what the guest feedback was, making those tweaks, and really creating the next iteration of it. So that was kind of the first year, really big pie in the sky perspective that I need to take on.
What are some of your kind of short-term goals? I know you guys are experiencing pretty big growth right now. What are some of your short-term goals maybe for this year?
Yeah, I mean, this year we're rolling out in our tech stack, we're rolling out a kitchen display system. That's big for us because we're kind of building it with our partner from the ground up. So that's a huge component, both for the guest and for our staff to make things more efficient. The second thing, we're spending a lot of time this year, honestly, on the employee journey. We've, like everybody in our industry, we've seen an immense amount of turnover, and to grow at the level that we're growing at, maintaining the culture is the most important thing. It's I think one of the most important parts of my job. So we're spending a lot of time this year. We partnered with a company called Retenza that does exit interview feedback, and we're really spending time. How do we make the employee journey, the employee compensation, the internal experience just as good as the external experience for our guests? So that's really, I guess we can call it short term, but this year, a huge component, and I guess win for us would be the improvement of our turnover and really working towards that, quote unquote, employer of choice mentality here, out in the field.
Yeah, in the restaurant industry, how do you, are there things you can do to keep it from being like a job that I just need for now while I move on to something else, like maybe make it a place that people want to stay?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for us, it's leaders create cultures, and then leaders below them create subcultures. So for us, it's making sure that we're talking about it and that we're addressing the elephants in the room. We actually utilize 7 Shifts, our labor platform, to get daily feedback from our employees, just like a guest. So every time they clock out, they rank us and they can write comments, and we look at those every morning. And the idea behind it is that if there's someone that is not feeling great about the environment of the leadership, we're aware of it and we address it and we want them to know, like, hey, this is a place you can grow. So we've spent time on that. We've built an internal coaching platform. We've basically everybody that's a salary and up gets some form of executive coaching to work on their development as an individual, not just professionally, but personally. And at the end of the day, we joke that we sell fun, not tacos. And that's the real goal that we're all trying to strive for is how do you make it fun? I mean, all work is challenging in some regard, right? There's always something that you don't want to do in your job, no matter how great your job is. But if you can make it fun and recognize the great performances out there, I think people get excited about that, and they care about how they feel at work, sometimes more than they're paid.
So how do you kind of replicate that fun atmosphere as you open up new stores? Do you kind of like set the fun tone right when you start?
Yeah, it's what we find great leaders across the company in our existing stores, and we send them to our new stores to train the team. So we look for those unicorns that we have. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of them in our company. Say, hey, you're going to go to we're opening in Chicago here in a couple of weeks. You're going to Chicago. I want you to train on my bar team because they're just one of the best that we have, and they love it because they get to go and they've got great energy and great charisma, and they get to go kind of set the tone. And we've got an amazing opening team. We hired a great gal named Nia that leads that team, and she keeps everything disciplined, but she makes it fun, and that's a really big key. So our training and development team is a huge component of making sure that we recreate fun in every opening.
How important is the location how does the location factor into that? The one that I've been to in Boulder, it just looks fun, and it's in kind of an area where like that seems like that would be a fun place to be. Is location a big factor into that fun atmosphere?
1,000%. I mean, we've done great in quote unquote college towns. Obviously, Boulder, we've got a college very close to us. To us, location is always the most important thing, but we've actually had great success into some underserved markets and in creating the environment and the vibe. We've found, again, college perspective, we've found some smaller cities like Stamford, Connecticut. We found amazing neighborhoods like Hyde Park in Tampa. We look for the great co-tenancy, places like Lululemon, Anthropology, and sushi restaurants. And we still have a little bit of a health aspect, but a fun health aspect. So to us, there's no perfect formula, but location is so important. It just needs to feel like Bartaco belongs in that environment. And we've started to get that formula down after a couple dozen restaurants.
How did COVID affect or change Bartaco's operation? Maybe how is it different in any way than it was before? I know the QR codes are much more important.
Yeah, that was a big thing. I mean, at the core, we're still the same who we are. The design is still important. Every aspect of detail is important. The food is still, utmost quality, but the service out front, changed. We leaned into tech, and I think what we did is we pulled a lot more of the younger generations into the brand as loyalists because they enjoy the experience. But that was the big change. And now we're starting to see it being adopted by a lot of other brands. I think at least once a week, either Scott or myself, another CEO or president is reaching out to us asking, hey, how does this work? Help me understand it. I want to do it in my brand. So I think we're the pioneers of doing something different, because COVID created so many challenges. And instead of, leaning off of it, not innovating, we use COVID as an innovation platform. We didn't lay off one employee. We didn't cut anybody's pay. To us, that was about building a brand and about building, kind of your foundational values of, hey, we're still here to take care of you no matter how hard things get. And I think it helped us pave the way in the future.
I guess you didn't get there until, COVID was still happening, but it wasn't like the main heart of COVID. Was it, from what you heard from talking to other people there, given the fact that you sell fun more than tacos, that's kind of hard to do when nobody's going out. Do you know how they kind of survive that?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. Before COVID, we never did takeout. Tacos just don't carry well to go. Everybody knows that. So we were forced to, like everybody, lean in and figure it out. And a huge testament to our culinary leaders. They figured out a great way to do it. And it became a zoo. We were, selling margaritas to go. And our location in Port Chester, New York, which is our busiest location, I laugh. I still hear stories. The lines were so long that it was a traffic jam even when they got their food. But they have to drop food and run. People are like, how do I get out? I don't know. It was an hour-long line. It's like Disney World, just trying to drive through to pick up your tacos and margaritas. So like everybody, right? We figured it out. We toughed through it. The teams were so resilient. They went through so much change, and we wouldn't be here without their hard work and dedication to making it work.
So I asked you about your short-term goals. Do you have kind of like a long-term vision or long-term goals that you'd like to see over the next, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for us, I mean, we're hoping to get, about 50 restaurants in the next 3 to 5 years, so double on the size of the company. But I think the most important part is a number is all well and great, but we're still a very local driven, community driven brand. The store in Boulder, which is one of my favorite design ones in our company, it doesn't look like any other bartaco in the country on purpose, because that beautiful street in Boulder has a look and feel to it, and we want it to be a part of the community. And I think as restaurants get to a certain size, it feels very standard. Like, hey, the bathroom's in the same spot in every restaurant, you know where to go. We never want to be there. So the long-term goal is to really keep, that entrepreneurial, innovative mindset that has gotten us to today, while adopting, the consistency and kind of standard procedures of a bigger company to keep us consistent for our guests, but still feel like we're a local restaurant. Like, the best compliment I get here in Connecticut, we've got a few stores where the company started. People always like, oh, you have more than 3 locations, which to me is the best feeling in the world, because that means they don't see us as this big box brand. They think that we're still their neighborhood brand. I think that's the long-term goal, is to preserve our culture, to make sure that's still something at the forefront of the future.
I have one more question for you, but first tell me how people can find out more about Bartaco.
Yeah, you can go on to bartaco.com, our website. We've got everything there, or follow us on Instagram. Our team does a great job kind of giving us some sneak peeks there. It's the best stuff. You can reach out to any of us personally. Feel free to contact me as well. My email is just Valletta@bartaco.com. Always love to hear from prospective guests and staff. Yeah, we keep everything out. We're pretty public about what we do. We're not secretive and elusive. So by all means, please feel free to give us a follow.
So if you were to go to Bartaco as an escape, what would that look like for you? What would be kind of your meal combination?
Oh man, I mix it up. It's funny. I'm obviously dine a lot, but it's my wife and my kids' favorite restaurant, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm the president. They just love the restaurant. They would go without me. Because I eat so much there, I mix up how I dine. But my favorite, items, it's a margarita and the duck birria. I would get those 7 days a week and never get bored. But I think the fun part is you can I eat differently every time I go, which I think makes the brand a little bit more addictive. Very nice. Sounds great. Hey, Anthony, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks so much. Really appreciate your time today. Chad, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.